Welcome to this week's Why. Now watch out people, because today is a rant, because you know what? These things have caused me so much grief this week, I can't quite believe it. I had the same conversation 5 times on Thursday with someone about how you should not be getting in your knickers in a knot about what it says on these. So this week's why should you ignore the number on the scales? The scales. This is something I talk about all the flipping time, and every time someone comes in and says to me, I want to lose weight and tone up, usually I want to slap them, because that is such a generic goal that you see in so much of the media these days. Where did you read that? Is that actually your goal, or have you read it on the TV or somewhere like that? What is your goal actually? So is your goal weight loss? Why is it that? Because society tells us that we need to weigh lighter and that makes us fitter and healthier. Well, that, my friend, is a whole lot of codswallop, because can I tell you something? If you were a New Zealand All Black, the scales would tell you you were obese. If you were to look at the BMI chart, which is what most people seem to think they have to judge themselves on, that would tell you you were obese if you were an All Black. Every single one of the All Blacks are obese. Why is that? Because muscle weighs more than fat. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you. I'll show you some pictures. Here's a visual representation. Left is fat, right is muscle. They both weigh the same, but one is bigger. Here's another one. Bricks on the right, feathers on the left. Both weigh the same, but one is bigger. And this is my favourite. These both weigh the same, but look at the difference. So, what actually happens when you come in and start exercising? Well, if you are a beginner fitness person, then you will have more mass as fat than you will have as muscle. What happens as you start to exercise is that fat mass turns to muscle mass. So in effect, you find that your trousers are looser and that your clothes fit better, and maybe they start to get too big, maybe you go down a size. We're forgetting about the scales here for a second, people, because that is what happens when you lose fat and gain muscle. You take up less space. So that means your clothes are smaller. What does the scale say? They may well say the same thing. They might actually tell you you're fatter. Why is that? Because you weigh more, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're fatter. You weigh more, but you're smaller, because muscle weighs more, but it takes less space up. So therefore, you can go down a dress size and you can go up in kilos. Yes, you can. And what should that mean for the scales? It means you forget these godforsaken things because they're not important. So I don't want to see anybody coming into my building and stepping on the scale and going, oh shit, because it doesn't matter. So what are some other ways that you can measure success? Let me calm down for a second. So you can measure success. Let's forget these. I'm just going to put them down actually, because they're not important. So you can measure success with how much fitter you are. So are you able to do more sit-ups than you could before? Are you able to run more laps than you could before? Do more push-ups, whatever it is. Are you able to get through that class easier than you could to start with? I've got an excellent example from someone that joined us just 5 weeks ago, and she couldn't do a sit-up without someone standing on her toes when she started. Now she can do full sit-ups effortlessly. Well, perhaps not effortlessly, but she can do full sit-ups now that she couldn't do before 5 weeks ago. We're not even mentioning these little piece of... we are talking about fitness, okay? So she has noticed that she is fitter because she can now do a full sit-up. I've got a lady who has been with me for a really, really long time, and she has recently said that she's back on the bandwagon because she had a really big holiday at Christmas and eaten lots and things like that, and she's now back looking after herself and attending more classes and that sort of thing. And she has noticed that even though the scales stay the same, her dresses have gotten bigger, which means they haven't grown in the washing machine. It means she has shrunk because she has gained more muscle again. Now the thing with muscle is you've got to keep working out and you've got to keep doing resistance training in order to keep that muscle. If you don't, the muscle will turn back to fat. That's just a fact. So if you stop exercising, you'll get bigger. That's not because you've got fatter necessarily, it's because you have lost some muscle mass and it's turned back to fat. So if you keep on coming and doing exercise and retain that muscle mass, then you should stay the same size. Another scientific fact, the more you expend, the more fat you burn. I've got another lady who goes to loads and loads and loads of classes, and someone asked her, was she really crazy? Did she really love fitness, all that sort of thing? No, she said it was because if she keeps coming to classes, she can eat what she wants. Now there's another thing. When I was a competing athlete, I actually didn't have to worry about how many calories I was putting in and all that sort of thing. I had to worry about what types of calories I was eating, because if I was eating the wrong stuff, then I'd be really crap when I tried to run. But a lot more energy expended, whereas now, because I'm injured and I'm not able to, I've got to be a lot more careful, because there's not as much energy expended, therefore you can't put as much fuel in, because actually you will get fat. So two things happening there, people. One is the amount of energy that you put in so much as fuel and how much you expend, and the other one is how much fat mass you've got and how much muscle mass you've got. Now, I want to ask you a question, because somebody recently contacted me asking me whether I wanted to do body mass tests on my clients, and I haven't answered them yet, to be honest. But there are some people that will do this test on you that will show you a picture of how much of you is fat and how much of you is muscle. Now, if you're a visual person, you find that sort of thing really helpful, maybe that sort of test is actually quite helpful to you. And if you think that I should call this person back and say, yes, we're keen, then you should contact me, because then I will. Because those sorts of things are actually visually tell the truth and let you know how much of you is actually muscle mass. If you think about Simon Goat's program, Why Are We Fat? He had one of those, he had a body scan, and they showed him how much of his makeup was lean muscle and how much was fat, and then he went away and did a heap of exercise, and they did the scan again and showed him the difference in the results. Now that's a really visual way of showing you actually how much of you inside is actually fat. So if that sort of thing is what you need in order to get this visual idea into your mind, then maybe you should contact one of those people, or contact me, and I can always get hold of this guy and tell him that we've got some people that are interested. Because anything that gets this freaking message out to people, because look, you see this? These things aren't important, right? It is how fit you are, how healthy you are, how well you move, how well your heart works, that's your cardio fitness, and how much muscle mass you have. What the scales actually say is not important at all. And what the BMI chart says is so old, you should never ever read it again, because it's stupid. Because it also says that all of them, all blacks are obese. Same as if you were they were to stand on the scales, that it would be classed as obese. So don't read what it says on this number, because we do fitness tests in a multitude of ways. Everybody responds differently. If you have just got off your biscuit eating couch and you're coming to us to do some exercise, likelihood is to begin with you'll lose heaps of weight, and then it'll plateau off. That's usually what happens with somebody new, because it's fat burning to begin with, and then your body gets accustomed to it. If you're not that sort of person, you might find it more difficult. So what we do with fitness tests is we take a cardio fitness test, which tells us how well your heart is working and how well that turns your energy in, what you breathe in into energy. And we also do a strength test, a core test, and we stand on the scales and we measure you, because all of that combined is what the results will tell us later as far as success, not just one element of those. So standing on those scales and going, oh shit, isn't actually a true picture, because we don't ever just get you to stand on the scales and measure your fitness from that, because that would just be stupid and you'd wonder what the heck we were doing. So don't do it yourself. So a tiny recap. Weight is only a very small part of how we measure fitness. Muscle weighs more than fat, which means that if you're more muscular, you take up less space. Doesn't mean we all turn into Arnie Schwarzenegger. It means muscle takes less space up. So you can gain muscle and you can go down a dress size but go up in weight. That is absolutely possible. And fitness is not measured by that little piece of glass down there that you step on. Fitness is measured by how much strength you've got, how many push-ups you can do, how many sit-ups you can do, how well you feel after a class, all those sorts of things. Weight is not important. It's not important. It's how healthy and fit you are, how well your heart is working. That's what is important, people. So please stop standing on those scales.